Folks, like most of us, Micah Folsom raises cattle. She runs multiple successful businesses. She hosts a top 50 podcast. She motivates and inspires thousands, is a former college athlete, has the energy of a nuclear power plant, and is a present and intentional wife and mom. Oh, yeah, she also homeschools her 5 kids and has another on the way. On top of all of that, she is one of the most positive, kind, and authentic people I know. Micah Folsom, how the heck are you? Welcome to
I'm
the RO
so
Podcast.
good. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm super stoked.
I'm excited. So all of that's true. Everything I just said about you, is that 100% true? Was there any error in there?
I mean, it's true, but it takes a village. So when you say Micah, it's like Micah and team of humans who are on a mission to do all of those things. So
I need to ask. So if I did a reread, I would say, and humble. I would say that also. Look what you just did. Gosh, nice work. All right. So I have a million questions. I mentioned to you, I went down a Micah Folsom wormhole yesterday, like 2 hours, and I feel like I just hit the tip of the iceberg. So give us a background. Give us a little. How do you do all of these things? High level, what are you focused on? You know, how you got where you are, the message you're sending to the world, and then I'll just get in there and start extracting like a dentist.
Oh man. That's a big loaded question. I guess to start off with, I was always involved with sports. I was always an athlete growing up, so I always had goals and things I was working towards and challenges and I liked to be pushed and I liked to be stretched. And so early on, my biggest goal in life was to be a mom. I'm like, okay, that's the end goal. I just want to be a mom. I want to stay home with my kids. I don't want to ever have to work ever. And that's it. So I get married at 19, meet my husband in college. He's playing football. I'm playing volleyball. We're like doing what we love. And we get pregnant 7 months into our marriage.
Wow.
So by the time I'm 20, we're having our first baby. And I had done it, right? Like that was like where my goals ended. I was like, okay, I'm 20 and I just hit my ultimate goal. Well, as most women who are listening can probably relate to, mom life was freaking hard. And it was like a big bottle of joy and loneliness and like, what else is there? And how do I do this by myself? And is this it for me? Like, do I just follow JD now everywhere he goes? He was playing in the NFL at the time. And so we were kind of just figuring out mom life with a baby, living in a hotel because we were in training camp. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to just start taking pictures of my baby because that's what all new moms do. And so I started taking pictures of her and I'm like, okay, this is fun. Now, how can I take better pictures? And so then I got into photography and at that point wanted to just kind of how my personality is, wanted to know how to do it better, wanted to like improve that skill, fell in love with it, fell in love with photography. I'm like, well, maybe I could do this for other people. Maybe I could capture their moments. Maybe I could bring joy to their family. And so I started a photography business, didn't know what the heck I was doing, self-taught, learned how to run a business, learned all it took, and did that for about 3.5 years. And when I finished, I was doing weddings and seniors. That was like what I fell in love with. And at that point, my husband was in vet school. So we were following him around doing what he wanted to do in life. And that was amazing. And then we hit another crossroad where we were in Oklahoma and
Whoa,
we
shout
loved
out Oklahoma.
Right? Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I'm from Oklahoma. Where in Oklahoma were you?
I know. We were at Oklahoma State.
There you go. Look at that in Stillwater.
I know.
Wow, how about that?
So we were there for 4 years. And we loved it. We fell in love with the people. It was a great experience, but I knew my family was all back west. So I'm like, I really don't want to live here forever, even though the people are great. No offense to the Midwest. I'm just a family girl at the core. And so we were running into the crossroad of my husband was very good at what he does. He finished number 1 in his class. Like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah. So he was getting job kind of like not opportunities in school, but people interested, wanting him to come out after he was done. They were all in the Midwest. And so I was like, this is going to suck. I'm like, gosh dang it. And I just knew like where we plant roots is where we're going to stay, period, because of his type of career. And he's a large animal vet. And so at that moment, I had just started my coaching business with Body, then known as Beachbody, and didn't have any really goal of building that to anything to be proud of, or just really needed to stay accountable to my own health. But a couple weeks into becoming a coach and starting to share my journey, I saw a video from another mom who was very normal, very down to earth, about what she had done with her business and what was possible. And at that moment, the seed was planted like, Micah, you have an open opportunity right here to create a life on purpose that you love. Like, you don't have to follow JD around and just do whatever dictates life. And it was at that moment that I'm like, well, let's just see what happens. Let's freaking go. And so JD and I were having conversations, and what I realized was we were definitely going to end up taking the highest paying job out of school if we were relying on his income. Like, that's just what made sense. That's what we would need to do. And so we had about 18 months left of school. And obviously we were taking out loans. We were out of state. So we had all this out of state tuition debt. And so I told him, I'm like, babe, we're going to pay off your loans before you even graduate. So we don't have to deal with debt, and we can choose where we want to go. And he's like, okay, like, right. And it didn't make sense. The numbers didn't add up, but I knew that if I just like got to work and really had the heart to help people and leaned into growing as a human, that who knew what could happen. And we did it. So we were able to pay off all of his loans. We were able to choose where we wanted to live, buy a home in Idaho, which is right between where our families lived. And it was like, so it was really early on that I got clear on, okay, if I want to live the life that is right for our family, I need to be so freaking intentional every day, because it's up to me. Like, I have power. I have responsibility, and I can make a difference. I don't have to rely on someone else. And I just wanted that choice for our family. Like, he still works. He still he owns his own practice. He does work he loves. It was never the fact that like, oh, I want to retire him and he can be home. And he would legit go crazy if like he could not live that life. But I knew that if we relied on that solely, then I would just kind of be like, all right, I'm just going to follow you and be the homemaker. And I don't know. I just needed something outside of mom life too.
I'm curious that I'm interested to drill down. I didn't know a lot of that. I mean, that's really interesting. And what's interesting about that too is there's a dynamic there within your marriage. And again, most people listening here are probably, families, and that creates an interesting dynamic within your marriage. And for some men that wouldn't work. Right. And you said something that was really interesting, and you weren't saying it pointed in any way. You said it with a purpose. You said, we were doing what he wanted to do. And you said, but that's amazing. But you did recognize, okay, but there's me as well.
Yeah.
Will you tell me about, to whatever degree you're comfortable, tell me about that dynamic, and maybe it goes into how he accepted it. I'm sure there were some times where there was some grinding there of the gears, but so I'd love to hear again, to whatever extent you're willing to share. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, no, I love this question because it took some real honest conversations. And we went through some struggles in vet school. And I think a lot of it came from me being like, wait, this is what I'm supposed to be happy with, but I'm not. Like he was gone all day long, like super early in the morning studying, and then he'd get home late at night, and he was doing what he had to do to get through school and to be successful. And he still he still made family a priority. He would get home, try and be home for dinner, and he's an amazing dad and husband. But I was like, my tank was not full.
Yeah.
And so that's where I thankfully found coaching and was able to find some of my identity and some joy and fulfillment there that I was lacking, quote, I'm doing hand quotes, just in motherhood, because motherhood is the hardest freaking job we'll ever have. And I know it's my ultimate calling, but I still needed something else. And I felt guilty about that for a while until I really got clear with myself and had a good talking to. But it brought up some really, really, really honest conversations with JD and I. And it was a lot of, well, this isn't what I thought our life would be. Like he was like, my mom's a homemaker. She's a ranch wife. She cooks all the meals. She doesn't do anything outside of that. I thought that's what you wanted to do. That's what you told me you wanted to do. And I'm like, that's what I thought I wanted to do too, but I don't know. Right. And so it really did. I was like, and he started to see how much joy it did bring. He started to see how fulfilled I was. He started to see this fire come kind of like light up again. And the struggle that came up was as I started making money doing my coaching business, it was like a hit to his ego and a hit to his security. Like I needed him before because of finances. And we got to the point where I did not need him anymore, but I wanted him. And that was a huge dynamic shift. And we had to have open conversations like, babe, I know I don't need you anymore, but you don't need to worry because I want you in my life. I want you a part of this. And we're going towards everything we want together, not what I want and then what you want. And that's what was causing some struggle while we were in vet school, is like he had his goals and what life was going to look like. And he was going to be successful vet, and he was going to be like known as in his industry. And that was so important to him. And I was like, okay, well, but I want a life like centered by family, and that make like you're a part of that. So you need to be home and you need to be, and I want to be around family. I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere while you're just doing work you love. And I'm like going crazy at home with the kids. And so we just had to talk. We had to open up that can of worms and be like, this is our reality. This is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. How can we do life together that we love? What is that going to look like?
Gosh, that's so, it is he. A couple things stand out about that story. One of them is you said, again, from JD's perspective, hey, wait a second. I thought you said all these things, but you forget you said that as a 19-year-old, right? Yeah. Without context of what things look like, and without like you see the romanticized version of being a mom, but like that's a freaking grind, as we all know, and as we as dads have observed. So that's an interesting thing for him to probably in a very fair way to have said, this isn't what I expected. But you had the same thing. Well, this is not what I expected. I made that commitment when I was a teenager, right? Yeah. It's not like, and how long had y'all dated before you got married?
Oh, geez. Not long.
Not long. Okay.
So, not long. Yeah. We literally met in like the spring, like in the weight room, crossing paths. Yep. Went on our first date-ish in July and told his family we were getting married at the end of July. Wow. And then we're engaged in September, married in December. So it was like wham, bam, bam, bam. Yeah.
Okay. So it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that you would say one thing, but you still reserving the right to see how things are in practicality and change it. Is he that had to? I know you're confident and you're bold, but that had to be a process for you to find that voice and then say it confidently. Was that it? What was that process like to say, like, to recognize the feeling like, hold on one second, like I need the thing that, I want to create a life on purpose that I love, you saying that. Mm-hmm. But how long did it take for you to really step into that voice and get comfortable with it and own it?
I mean, I feel like it took probably a good year. Thankfully, in the coaching world, personal growth and mindset is a huge focus. Yeah. I had never really done much of it before, even as an athlete. I wish they would have incorporated all of that as an athlete when I was young, but I really hadn't gone into that world until that point. And so months and months and months into like really digging into who I was and my potential and who I could be and the feelings and being in tune with this resistance that I was feeling. I literally was like, for the first, I don't know, probably 6 months, almost in denial that I was building a business.
Huh.
Like with coaching, I was like, oh no, I'm just like doing it on the side in the mom cracks. Like it's just very like whatever. And we were like making decent income and it was something that I absolutely loved. And it was all stemming from like, no, but you're supposed to be a mom. Like you're like,
Yeah.
that's what you're supposed to be doing. So you're not supposed to have a job. You're not supposed to have a career. You're not supposed to have an actual business that makes a life-changing amount of income. Like that's not what's in the cards for you. Like my identity literally was getting shaken.
Yeah.
And thankfully, and so like through all of that, it was very, oh, I'm just doing it on the side, like when it's convenient and when I'm not putting my family at like an inconvenience and I'm still doing these things. And then we got to a point where like it was either I work or I clean the house
Yeah.
or I do these things or this gets done. And that's when conversations had to happen because
Yeah.
JD would come home and the house would be like a mess. And I'm like, babe, I'm trying to hit this goal and I got a deadline and this crap had to get done. And so the laundry is going to have to wait and you're going to have to be okay with that. And so it took some like, what is going on? Okay, hold on. But we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out.
So when you said you said, you were doing it on the side, is that a story you told yourself or is that a story you told JD and others? Was that your own narrative for yourself or was it truly like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, was it in some ways almost like you were downplaying it to others to keep up this appearance? Like, no, I'm a mom, I'm taking care of
Right.
it. Was it a downplaying or was it even like a defense mechanism within yourself that in case it didn't succeed, well, it sounded like it was, it seemed like if it didn't succeed, at least you could always say like, oh, it was just something I was trying out.
I think it was more me carrying that expectation of myself
Yeah.
that mom priority was number 1 and everything else had to happen after that. And so I think it was me like, and I did. And speaking of intention,
Yeah.
that was when I really learned like, I've got white space in my days. Even though I had 2 kids at the time and JD was gone all the time and I was still doing my photography business, I have white space in my days that I can fill with intention that can move the needle forward on this side business. And so I literally would ask myself, is this moving me closer to the goal or is it moving me further away? So, really quickly, I was making trade offs that were like, this is not serving our life or our goals. It's going off the table for this season, and I'm filling it with this. But it wasn't shaking up family life. It wasn't shaking up like, if someone from the outside looking in, they would never know I was doing anything
Right.
extra. Like we were still going on play dates. The kids were still in stuff. It was just, I was willing to sacrifice some things that I was doing or scrolling or wasting time or watching shows or just sitting and not doing anything. I filled those gaps with things that were actually moving us closer to goals in my coaching business. And so I think it was more me that had to come to terms like,
Yeah.
if you're going to actually do this, like you're going to have to figure out what this looks like and how that balance really comes to life. And that's when I was like, oh frick, I can't do all this. I can't do it all. This is not going to work. So that's when I had to get real with myself and put my ego at the door and go, wait, but do you actually have to do this or do you just value that it gets done? And that was the
Oh, I
first
like
thing,
that.
because the first thing that I delegated was house cleaning.
I was about to say, is that the last time you vacuumed? Was that it? Like I'm
I
good now.
mean, all right. I still vacuum every once in a while, but I was like, okay, I value having a clean house because that makes me feel like a successful homemaker. But I hate cleaning. I like having a clean house. I hate cleaning, and that's wasting time. Like I could have someone else do that. So it was literally like little things like that. Okay, but I want this done. Doesn't have to be done by me. And then I started to do those things in my business. Like this monotonous stuff needs to get done, doesn't need to get done by me. It can be done by a VA or whatever. So I really, really had to get intentional about, okay, what are my highest priorities? Where do I want to actually spend my time and energy? And then what are the things that need to get done that are aligned with my highest priorities, but don't need to get done by me? And I was like,
Gosh,
let's go hire all the help to help me do those things.
that's amazing. It's such, and we'll get into this more, but just it seems like that's such a competitiveness combined with intention, combined with practicality, like all that stuff, and mindset, obviously in there. That all stacks on top of each other. That's really interesting. I'm curious, what would you, if a, again, if a dad is listening here and maybe something similar is happening right now, like they're seeing like their wife, like, hold on one second, like she's taking on, she's wanting to kind of shift away from what we thought, or hey, she's got a business idea in mind. What are some things that you would advise them on, whether it's something that JD did really well, or if he would do it over again, he would say, or maybe what would JD say, like, hey, here's some good advice if you're going through something similar and your wife is kind of, getting some epiphanies like you were.
Yeah, I would say some of the things that we had to learn kind of the harder way were, one, having goals that were united. Like,
Yeah.
so having those conversations with your spouse. Why do you want to build this? What is it going to look like for our family? What doors does it open up? Because when we were having marriage friction, it
Yeah.
was when he's obviously very goal determined and very driven and very successful in what he does. And I was having that same ambition, that same excitement, the same drive, but like they were like going two different directions.
Yeah.
And that's when we're like, okay, hold on, let's bring it back together. So how can we do this together? And then it was really just peeling back the layers of what life is supposed to be and really understanding what it can be and what it could be if you came together and like built some new things together. And when JD really got on board and started to understand what this could do for our life, he was like, how can I help? How can I
Wow.
help in the kitchen? How can I help with the kids at nighttime when you have to be on a team call, or what can I do? Where before it was like, oh, roll his eyes. Like, you have to go do that again. Okay, great. And it
Yeah.
was more of an annoyance and like a thorn in his side. And when he really caught the vision of why I was doing it and what it meant for our family, he was so much more open to, how can I support? How can I help?
Yeah.
What can I do to be a part of this?
That's so awesome. When he did kind of catch that vision, did he start calling you sugar mama?
No, no, but no, but it's so funny. It's so funny. And JD and I laugh. And thankfully, he's very confident, very secure. He did have to go through some like some stuff. Like, holy
Right.
crap, what does this mean? But like when we were looking for our house and we would walk through and stuff, it was always like, oh well, what do you do for a living, to JD? And he's like, oh, I'm a vet. And it was never like, they never, what do you do?
Oh,
And
so
but
interesting.
right. But he's so like, he would be like, I'm a vet, but actually my wife is the baller. And he's very like willing to own. He's very successful and he is so good at what he does, but he
Yeah.
never is afraid to also acknowledge the fact that like he's able to do exactly what he loves and slay because of opportunities that this has opened up for him. So I always appreciate that. So
That's so cool. I love
yeah.
that. I you talk to women largely, and moms, and so much of your backstory that you just gave us speaks to that. And you talk to moms in business and entrepreneurs, and you refer to them, women having feelings of frustration and being stuck and discouraged and hopeless. And do you think that is really two questions here? Do you think that is common among women? And then secondly, do you think that women, and I think you've answered a lot of that, do you think women experience that differently than men? That's those sorts of, feeling stuck, and some of those words, and maybe you can speak to what some of those common emotions are that women may experience different than men.
I do think that we go through a different experience than men do. I think especially as mothers, there's just something that is, when you're raising children who literally require so much of you, and you carry so much of your identity on taking care of them and nurturing them, and it's like you give and give and give and give and give, and that's almost what's expected of you. And so women go through this, and I'm obviously generalizing, but I think a lot of women go through this, holy crap, how am I supposed to do it all and have any capacity to take care of myself and have
Yeah.
any ounce of anything else left? Like, there's literally nothing left of me. And I think when I talk to women, it's a common thing. I'm stuck. I feel frustrated. I think so much of it stems from what they're seeing. on social
Yeah.
media. I mean,
Wow.
even the moms that romanticize motherhood, it's like, oh, but their house is perfect and their kids are always well dressed and they're getting along and they're all of this like perfect world stuff. And then you've got like chaos happening behind you and there's crap on the wall and whatever. And you're like, how are they doing it? And how am I such a failure? So I think it's a combination of so many things that people are going through in this day and age. And I don't know. I just feel like
Yeah.
women are up against almost like an impossible situation to live up to what they expect themselves to be, and then also just really slow down and enjoy the chaos and enjoy the simple moments and
Yeah.
enjoy the mundane and enjoy, because that's truly, I feel like, where the sweetest moments happen in mom life, but that's not what we're seeing as important, and that's not what we're seeing
Yeah.
as deemed as valuable to pay attention to even. So I don't know. Our world is crazy.
Well, it's so true though. You're basing the expectation on yourself on a mirage. You're basing it on something that's just
Totally.
not real. I mean, truly, it's not real. Like you don't see what's behind the camera, and so that has to be an enormous amount of pressure put on. And you reference social media again. You do a great job. This is what I love, our approach, and I know yours is as well. We were aware of the ills of social media. We're still active on them. You're still a
Yeah.
light on social media to other people, and hopefully busting them out of the comparison trap, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that's been super important to me. Like, it's such a balance between sharing the real and sharing the hope and sharing the joy and sharing what's possible and sharing, like, I think it's that fine line between, oh, I'm just going to throw my hands up and accept my reality. Like, no, you don't have to do that. Like, you can
Yeah.
still be making progress and find the joy and feel happy in the midst of all the stuff that's going on. And there's also things you can do to improve your life every single day. So it's like being grateful for where you're at, appreciating what you have while still being open to improvement and growth and
Yeah.
even more fulfillment and joy. So it's that balance of, I will show you the real and show
Yeah.
you what's going on, but I'll also show you like we do really have a joyful, happy life. But it's because of a lot of things that we've built, and it's because I'm not doing it by myself.
Yeah. Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is the I'd be curious to hear some stories if you have one or two, just at the top of your head, of stories of where women have felt stuck and they've encountered you and they've intersected, and stories of their transformation. I'd love you. I didn't prep you for this, so if you have any offhand, I'd love to hear it.
Oh man. I mean, I think there's so many different like stories that are near and dear to my heart. I think some of the most common things that I hear from most of the women that I work with, which is really cool, is like, I was just accepting life as it was coming. Like, I was
Mm.
complacent. I thought that was how it was always going to be. I had put myself on the back burner. I had like given everything to my kids, and I found me again. Like, there, and it
Wow.
makes me emotional when I think about it, because there's so many different conversations in my head that they're like, I found me again. Like, and my kids are getting their mom back. And I think that's the thing that moms need to hear sometimes, is like, we think we're giving everything to our kids, but we're giving them what's left of us. And they deserve so much more than that. So it's going to take some self care and taking care of your body and taking care of your mind and taking care of your soul, so that you even have any capacity to give your kids the best of you and not the rest of you. And I think that's so important. And I think the message is getting clearer and getting out there, and moms are feeling less guilt around taking time for themselves and taking care of themselves, and even enjoying hobbies and doing things that are outside of pouring into their kids, because for so long that's been the narrative, like, give, 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 and if you don't, you're a bad mom, and if you do anything else other than that, you're a bad mom. And it's like, oh, that's such BS.
You feel this. I mean, you've been doing this for how long? How long you been coaching?
It'll be 10 years in July.
And you're a decade in and you still feel it. I mean, I see the red eyes there. I mean,
Oh man.
I'm a crier, by the way. So game recognizes game here. But what is it? Why do you think it's still 10 years in? Why do you think it's still just as fresh? Why do you think it moves you like it does?
I mean, probably just because it's still coming up. Like every single day I'm getting messages or comments or like, I don't know how you do it. I feel so blah blah blah. And I'm like, gosh, like let me just take hold of you. Like let me take you under my wing and tell you how simple it can be, because it really is. When I look back, I feel like there's so much information out there. There's so many things thrown at you about how to do a certain way and how to live a certain way and how to what fitness looks like and what health looks like and all of this stuff. And it's like, ugh, I don't have time or energy or the space to do any of this. But I'm like, it really is so simple. Like, and you can do it from home and you can do it in the midst of mom life with your kids all around. And so I just feel for all of these women who are sitting in the struggle, who are sitting there feeling stuck or frustrated or lost or any of those things. And I'm like, let me just take you under my wing and just help
Yeah.
you get on your path, because it's not anything that I'm doing for them. It's just what I'm helping them become aware of that they can do. And then they get to have that ownership in their life. And it literally is so empowering. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can do hard things. I can show up for myself. I can
Wow.
show my kids what's possible. And it really is, to me, why I will never stop doing this is
Yeah.
because of the generational impact that it has. When you can impact a mom, you impact all of her children, you impact her
Yeah.
spouse, you impact grandkids. Like, and so I'm like, that work is too important not to do.
That is so entirely true. You know, we talk about changing the world. We want to change the world, but that's only the only way you do that is by changing an individual world. And to your point, like that goes through generations and generations and generations. We did a 23andMe. This is, you know, my wife and I did a 23andMe recently, and my wife looked back on her heritage. So she's part of the Ashkenazi Jews, and so she's part of this line. And 600 to 800 years ago, there were 350 of them left.
Oh my
350
gosh.
total. And you look at that, and so then I look at my kids, and that's from those freaking 350 that were strong. So think about what you're doing, intersecting with lives, and then changing things that will reverberate for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That changes the world. It really is. There's no real small way to put that.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
I feel like, and it's crazy to think about, because you're like, what I do, I feel like is really so small. Like when I don't work with thousands of women every single month, like I'm working with a handful of new women each month. And then I work with hundreds over the years and
Right.
ultimately thousands over the years. But it's like, that's what change, that's how it all starts. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's the small, it's the ripple effect, it's the consistent, intentional actions each day that allow you to make the big impact. And I think sometimes looking back, if I would have known 10 years ago what type of growth it would have taken, or what it would have, like what type of stretching of my comfort zone and my all of the things that I was deathly afraid of speaking, deathly afraid of so
Really?
many things. Oh, I would get
That's
so nauseous.
shocking.
If I was asked to speak in church, I would be like, okay, I would literally like almost make myself sick being so anxious about it. And so if I would have known that in order to reach the type of women that I wanted to work with and make the impact that was possible, I would have to do A, B, C, and D. I'd have been like, nope, don't sign me up for that. I'm out. But it's like all of those, it's just like baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. You don't go from A to Z. You go from A
Yeah.
to B and then B to C. So I think lots of women, especially, and probably dudes, get stuck in that gap
Yeah.
between where they are and where they ultimately want to be. And they're like, but there's such a huge gap.
Yeah.
There's such a huge gap where what is that going to look like? What is it going to take? Am I willing? Am I capable? And it's like, you're probably not right now, but you will be, and
Yeah.
you'll continue to grow. And I think what's so rad about what you're doing is like, when we are having our conversation on my podcast, it really is that you're up against like this monster of an addiction with phones. And yet the impact that you guys are making, one family at a time, one person at a time, you're going to be able to change so many things with how people are having their relationship with their phone. And it's the same thing, like one at a
Yeah.
time, small steps, and you're going to make a huge impact. So I just,
No, that's That's
Love
amazing.
what you guys do.
Well, would love what you're doing. You have a couple of concepts that I really, really like, and I'm curious if you coined some of these. So there, one term that I'd not heard before. It was multi-passionate life, living a multi-passionate life. That I like that concept. I think it's self-evident in the term, but tell me a little bit about that one. I have a few others I want to follow up with, but multi-passionate life, I really like that idea and concept.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think lots of times we just box ourselves into feeling like I can either be this or that. I can, and that was the life I was living. I can either be a good mom or I can be successful in business or whatever. And
Yeah,
so as I got on my journey, I'm like, no, but I can be a good mom and I can be good at this. And then as I continued on, I can be this and I can be that, this and that. And over the years, things have expanded. So obviously, like coaching, and then I started the podcast, and now we have our beef business. Like none of that was on the radar. And you just don't know, like as you become the person that you're meant to be on earth, you're going to have opportunities to grow. You're going to have opportunities to serve more. You're going to have opportunities to do more good, and you will gain the capacity to do so as you continue on. And so I just feel super passionate about not only modeling that, but helping people open their eyes to like what have I kind of like blocked from my
yeah,
life because I feel like I'm one dimensional. I can only do the one thing. I can only be good at the one area. And so I just want people to understand like you can do so many good things. So what's
yeah,
on your heart? Like what
yeah.
do you want to follow next?
You talk about saying yes to your heart tugs. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about heart tugs. Tell me what that means and what it requires to say yes to those heart tugs and listen to them.
Yeah, so I think I mean as human beings, especially I just feel like I'm a very spiritual type of person, not to the degree of like checking the boxes in religion and whatever, but just being in
Yeah.
tune with who you're meant to be, like who God wants you to be on earth, what type of instrument you can be. And it's those heart tugs that like just flutter by. It's like those
Mm,
inklings of thoughts that you're like, what could happen if I did this? Or like, what would life look like if I did that? Or I wonder, and it's those things that pass that you can either act on and you can kind of entertain and you can get curious about, or you can shut down and be like, oh, no way, Jose. Like, I could never do that. I can never, whatever. And I think a lot of people get the heart tugs and those intuitions of like the direction they need to go next, and they shut them down because of fear, because of doubts, because of whatever. And so I just always talk about heart tugs because they're so individual, they're so personal, they're so going to you for a reason that as we get really in tune with those things, that is how you live life on purpose because
yeah.
it's meant for you and you're guided and directed every step of the way. And so you never really have to wonder, like, well, am I supposed to do that? Well, do you feel called to it? Then yes. And if it's
Wow.
not, it doesn't have to be the end all, like, it doesn't have to be the ultimate, but it can open up a next door. It can give you the lessons or the things you need to grow in order to do the next thing. And so I just feel like everybody gets them, but not everybody acts on them and they're missing their miracles.
Yeah. One thing you said that really jumped out there that I loved is you said you get curious about them. So it's not as if when that heart tug comes to you, you got to go build out a, 10-step plan. Just get curious about it. And part of that
Yeah.
obviously is just getting a little bit quiet so you can hear them. But then I really like that a bunch. Just get curious about it and don't put a bunch of pressure. It sounds like this is something you receive and you don't put pressure on yourself, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, totally. Totally. And you don't need to know the steps. You don't need to know the game plan. You don't need to know the results. You just need, like when I say get curious, yeah, ask yourselves questions like, what would that allow us to do? What could that make possible? What could that, like, for instance, with the beef business,
Hmm.
um, that was so out of left field, like never on the radar whatsoever. But what got me excited were a couple different things. One, we could bring our kids into it. It would allow us to be way more intentional with our family time on the farm. It would allow us to grow something from the ground up and teach them business stuff. And it also opened up opportunity for my brother and sister-in-law to move up to Idaho to ultimately like help
Oh, that's
run it.
cool.
And so when the heart tug came, I was like, oh man, we don't have extra time or capacity to do anything right now. But could what could this be? And how could it look? And who could help? And what would it take? And am I willing to do that? And of course, we're like knee
Yeah.
deep in it. So I was willing. But it just has opened up so many doors and growth opportunities and experiences for our family. And just been such a blessing. So it's always worth asking yourselves those questions.
Well, the mind is always going to immediately go towards all the reasons why not. I mean, that's how we're
Absolutely.
built. We're going to go to the practical at first. And if you don't allow yourself to at least be curious, so it's almost two different things. It's on the one side, it's building out a full plan before you're curious about it. But then the other side of it is not just shutting it down before you're curious about it. At least be curious and entertain it. I like
Yeah.
that. So very, very practically, you're big on morning routine. So I want to hear, and I think everybody would love to hear, tell us about your morning routine. How did that become a priority? And just practically walk us through what you do.
Yeah. So my morning routine has shifted over the years. It came about out of necessity at the beginning. Like I had young kids, and if I was going to have any time to have any Micah time at the beginning of the day, it had to happen early and it had to happen before they woke up. So I am just very passionate about setting yourself up, like tuning into how you want to feel, not so much checking the boxes of what you want to get done, but how do you want to feel? So I always wanted to stay connected to the vision of our life, connected to what we were doing on earth, how we were doing it, how we were showing up each day. And so I just kind of built a routine that allowed me to set myself up, take care of myself, move my body, take care of my mind, pray, do those things. And then I could mom, and then I could do
Hmm.
business, and then I could do the things. Now that we homeschool, I was just having this conversation with JD the other night. I'm like, I don't have to wake up at 5 anymore because we don't have to rush the kids off to school and we don't have a deadline. And so we have a slower paced morning and it's a little bit different, but I still wake up, I take my pre-workout, I go to the gym, our gym, not the gym,
Hmm.
but walk across the street to our gym where it's quiet and the kids are not. I read, I do some personal development. I listen to my vision in my ears on loop. So I've recorded it of me. I have a whole vision story like process. So I
Wow.
record me, listen to it each morning, pray, do some like devotional study, and then I work out and do like my first bit of business is sharing on social and like getting some content up. So I always do that first and foremost before I come back in, and then we do homeschool and work and all that stuff. But it's like I just feel like morning routine is it's such an easy way to build a solid foundation for the rest of the day. So if you just like leave it up in the air for how things are going to happen, it's like I used to just wake up when the kids were screaming and ready to be awake, and all of a sudden it's like chaos, like right away, like holy crap, and you're in overwhelm and you're in like you're already overstimulated, and like that was not how I wanted to wake up and feel first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And so it's just really getting in tune with how do you want to feel first thing in the morning? How can you set yourself up a routine that supports that and puts you in control of that? And then you can go about your day. So I just feel like it makes such a difference.
That's huge. It really is. And just the way you start off the day, it's amazing the difference it makes. You and I, we got connected. I would love to hear, and I don't want this to be a big RO, story, but technology in your home is important to you. And we talk about relationship
Yeah.
with your technology, how it relates to those around you. I'd love to hear a little bit of how we got connected, and maybe a little bit of how ROs played out in your home.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. So, this has been like a topic for the past year with my family. Obviously, I build my business like 99.9% online. So, my phone is
Right.
very much a part of our daily life and what's going on. But I also know how important it is to have the boundaries and have the unplugged time and have the just like phone away, fully present, not distracted. Well, then as my kids started getting devices, and obviously JD does a ton of stuff on his phone, it was always there. Like phones were always around and
Yeah.
always there. And so as a family, we came together and we're like, what can we do? We have like no phone zone time. Like this is where it's family time, phones away. But that would last for a sec and then it wouldn't. And so then my daughter made a no phone zone box, and we were supposed to put our phone in the box every time it was that family time. But we did it for a sec and then we didn't because it's inconvenient. It wasn't charging and it was hard to get out. So just little annoying things that
Sure.
were like putting kinks in our situation. But really, just we know the importance of it. And so I saw one of my friends from social who we went to the same college, Kelly. She posted something about RO. She posted like this beautiful box that she had and I'm like, what is this? So of course I follow like the little loop and I find your page and I see what you're about. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is exactly what we need. And I love what they represent. So I reached out to you and I'm like, I want you on my show. Like, I want to talk about this. I want to bring awareness around this. I want people to understand that there's a way to have the boundaries and do the thing. And the thing that I think I come up a lot against like women who want to build a business online, but have that same fear of, I don't want it to take over my life. I don't want to have my phone with me all the time. I don't want to. And yet usually they're the same people who like are the first ones watching my stories all throughout the day. And I'm like, but you're on your phone anyway. Like, come on. So they just don't want another reason to be even more addicted to their phone. Cause I know it's such a big issue and everyone has that pull, but doesn't want it. And it's like, how do you do it? How do you balance it? So I got the Aura box. We started using it and I just love it. I love the intention that it places behind, okay, now I'm fully present. Like my phone is going away. What can we do as a family? What can we do? And it's just a different energy. It's a different feeling that comes from that versus like, I'm trying to be present, but I still have my phone. And if it goes off or if I want to look something up, it's just it's too convenient. It's too convenient when it's in your pocket. So I love it so much. We all love it.
That's nice of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You are, what's interesting about that, what jumps out about all of that is you are in the top 0.0001% of intentional people. And it's still so hard. I mean, you described it. It really is a challenge and you're so intentional. And obviously environment is such an important piece of that and having the right tools. Intentionality is a word that comes up again and again with you, and it's evident in your story. It's evident in even the words you say. So I'm curious. We like to ask this question of guests. So what does intentionality mean to you?
I think for me, intentionality is like your desire. Intentionality is like your desire to put the focus behind what you want. But it's really interesting because you can be intentional and you can have the desire to change and you can want to change and you can try to put the boundaries in place to do it, but the follow through can be completely different. And I think that is what is so that's why like my whole podcast is about the unsexy habits that build a legendary life. So it's like you can have the intention, but what are you doing to build the structure, the habits, the routines, the environment, the boundaries? And so I love that. I mean, everything that you guys represent, it's like most people have the intention to be present, to be fully family focused, to put their phone away, to not be distracted. But just like we talked about on my show, like when it's there, it's just too easy. Like it's just too easy. You want to look up a recipe. And all of your intentions are good. You're like, this isn't bad. It's not bad to want to look up a recipe, but then you look up a recipe and then you see a ding come up and then you go on to your messages and then you see this. And it's just like, that's how it is. And so I just feel like you've got to have the intention and the desire first, which is awesome. But then you got to have some structure and some support and something to back up that intention that's going to help you actually follow through and commit to it.
So good. That is so good. I want to go through a few of the things you're doing so people can connect with you, and because there are going to be multiple ways that they can. You mentioned Do Your Crap podcast, which I love the title. I love you said the unsexy habits that build a legendary life. That's such a good tagline. Where can people find that? Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure people want to listen.
Yeah. So it's on any podcast platform. You can find it anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. It's kind of focused on entrepreneurs, but it's really going to help any human that just wants to live their best life. So we have a lot of mom talk. We have a lot of entrepreneur talk. We have guests that come in and share their experiences and best practices and things. So definitely come hang out. It's a fun show for sure. And no matter what industry you're in, or if you're a mom or whatever, you'll get something out of it for sure.
It's really good. I mean, you're an excellent host. It's shocking that you were afraid of talking at one point, because it's just so good. Folsom Beef. I want to hear Folsom Beef. How can people connect with that and order and tell us about that?
Yeah. So this is our newest adventure that came about last year. We had the idea. So my husband grew up on a ranch. He's always been in that world. We've had cows for years. I think since 2015, when we got out here, we started building our herd. So every year we would raise and fatten up a beef for us. So we enjoyed homegrown beef, and we're like, this is amazing. It's the best ever. But never, ever had the desire to sell it or to make it available to anyone else. And then one of my friends reached out and was like, I want my family to have like the best meat. I don't trust what's going on in the world and Would you guys sell us one? And I'm like, I'm like, that's interesting. I'm like, we could. Sure. So we worked it out. Of course, she started sharing it. Other people started asking. So it kind of came about from just people wanting access and not having it available to them. And then we came to the point where we were only doing whole cows, and people on social were not able to get them because they had to get them from here, from Idaho. And so we're like, babe, we got to figure out how to ship this. Like, we've got to figure out how to do boxes, smaller amounts, make it accessible for anyone who values just wholesome meat that they can trust. And so that's when the idea came up to do like subscription boxes and things like that. And it's been, holy moly, it's been such a learning curve to figure out all of the different, there's so much red tape and situations that you've got to like work with. But so that idea came about last year, and in January of this year is when we actually launched it. So it's like our little baby that we're still nurturing and figuring out and growing, but we're having so much fun. It's been so cool. Every time we get people sharing like their recipes and things that they're doing with our meat, I'm like, this is the coolest. This is the coolest. Cool. So yeah. So folsomfarmbeef.com. You can learn all about the farm, our practices, what's going on, and it links up to the store too. So you can order from there.
Perfect. folsomfarmbeef.com, FOLSOM. Yeah, okay, what about Ignite Your Life? I'm probably leaving out like 11 things, but Ignite Your Life. Let's hear it. People, I know people are going to want to hear about that.
Yeah, Ignite Your Life. That is my program that's specific for network marketers. So it was interesting. Obviously, I mentor women on my team, and that's like my heart. I love mentoring women that have then the access to completely build a life because they have that financial opportunity tied to it. So I was getting, when I started the podcast, it's obviously for anyone. So I was getting lots of people from other industries listening, and how do I hire you as a business coach? How do I like teach me your systems? How do I, and I'm like, I don't have a way. I don't have a way. And so I'm like, I got to figure out something that I can make industry wide, because I'm super passionate about network marketing and how it's transformed our life and what doors it opens up for people when they're aligned with a company that they absolutely love. And so I'm like, okay, I can put everything that I've learned, everything that I've done to build a 7-figure business while honoring my highest priorities, like not missing out on family time, not missing out on the things that I love, because I think the hustle culture and all of this messaging is of you can either be this or that was so strong. And I want people to know that it's possible. And I want them to have a direct roadmap to do so. Not just know that it's possible, but then have the steps and the things to make it happen. So that's when I built the program and launched that, I think like a year and a half ago. And it has been so much fun. So cool to work with women all in different industries that are able to believe what's possible for themselves and have the roadmap to bring it all to life. So that's what the program is.
Where can people find info on that?
They can find info at micahfolsomfit.com/ignite your life. I actually have a free masterclass that anyone can take as well. That's kind of like that door into that. I talk about it at the end, but it's going to talk about the 3 most common beliefs that people carry with them that are keeping them from that next level of success. And you can get access to that at micahfolsomfit.com/7figure-secrets.
Perfect. We'll link all of this in the show description as well.
So many links.
What about socials? Where can people? By the way, you're so. I will say you are a must follow on social media. The midnight runs out to find the lost cow. I mean, it's awesome. So where can people follow you on social? It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, you can. All of the main stuff is at my main page is at Life on Folsom Farm. So that's kind of where you get a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Micah, it's been delightful. It really has, as always.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining the RO podcast. Everybody go check Micah out. Check the show description for all of the links. Micah, you're just the best. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Such a blast.